Hello. So, the Bundesliga comes back this weekend, just like the Premier League. And so, I mean, you guys know if you've watched the weekend recap, I very much enjoy watching German football. I do. The fan culture, everything that surrounds it. I really like how German football is run. I don't love that Bayern wins every year, but I don't think that there are many beyond Bayern supporters that actually enjoy that. So it's not exactly a wild take to have, of course. As a neutral, it gets a little bit uninteresting when you can already write down the winner's name at the beginning of the season. But will that happen this season? I mean, it's more likely than not that Bayern are going to win the season, isn't it? Let's be real here. But maybe call it romantic optimism, something like that. But this season, you always go into it at least hoping that somebody will dethrone them. RB Leipzig in that second half of the Super Cup looked great against Bayern. They really made them sweat. It showed that there are cracks in Bayern's defense once again, actually. You're also going to hear from Manuel Veth, my very good friend from the west coast of Canada, from my hometown of Victoria. Well, he's not from there, but he lives there, of course. He is quite clearly a German man. You're going to hear from him about a certain signing at Bayern that perhaps isn't panning out, at least so far, it's very early days, perhaps isn't panning out how Bayern expected him to at a technical level. So that will be interesting to hear. You're also going to hear about RB Leipzig, what they have going on there, how close they are to dethroning Bayern perhaps. Are they the number one contender? We'll also talk about Bayern Leverkusen because they looked very good last season. Are they going to continue on that same trajectory? And Borussia Dortmund had a great window, but now the tragic health issues that have struck Sebastian Haller, as well as another injury that is sort of haunting Niklas Süle, causes you to question how they're going to start. Will they be able to recover quickly enough? There's a lot of questions to be asked, but as far as their window goes and as far as their first match went and the talent they have at their disposal, how they played under Edin Terzic previously, we're going to get into all of this, guys. We will. And of course, Manuel and I are part of the Unsackable podcast together. And Manuel has his own Bundesliga podcast, Gegenpressing, that you absolutely need to listen to. They're going from strength to strength, continuing to elevate Bundesliga coverage in English for you guys. So do check that out. Him and Stefan Biankowski are doing great things there. Let's talk about Bayern for a second. And speaking of the Unsackable podcast, actually, Manuel, we recorded an episode last week while you were at the Super Cup. And when we spoke about Bayern and their transfers, I sort of questioned as to whether this would be almost like Nagelsmann's first real season at Bayern. And what I mean by that is it seemed as if Nagelsmann was trying to strike a balance between how he typically likes his teams to play and how Bayern have played in years past under, Flick, etc., and what has brought them a lot of glory and a lot of success. Now, without Lewandowski as the focal point of the attack anymore, with the signings they've made, having Mazraoui down the right, do you think that we'll see a more coherent Nagelsmann vision, more of a Nagelsmann team this season than we saw last season?
Well, Bayern certainly hopes so. I think there's a lot of pressure now on him to show that this is his team now. The signings were made to accommodate his football and to give him players so he can finally put his vision of the game onto the field. And I think the Super Cup kind of showed the direction that he wants to go in, this 4-2-2-2 with Mane and Gnabry in the attack, and then Musiala and Müller playing right behind that, and then anchored by two defensive midfielders, one of them more offensive, one of more defensive, and that is, I think, the sort of the blueprint that we also saw a little bit at Leipzig, and Bayern certainly provided him with the goods that he demanded, right, which then in turn also puts pressure on him to deliver the goods.
Yeah, they absolutely backed him, and now it's time for him to perform. So speaking of everything that arrived, let's talk about Lewandowski leaving. Of course, people are right away going to make the very quick conclusion that, this is a 40-plus goal a seasoned striker that you just lost. Do you think that with the signs that they made, like a Mane, with this sort of hybrid front line, do you think that goals are going to be hard to come by for Bayern? Because it certainly didn't seem like they in the Super Cup.
No, it didn't. And I mean, I think Stefan Biankowski put it quite well, the Gegenpressing podcast that we put out this week, right? It was kind of like Bayern's A team playing against Leipzig's B team in the first half, and then Leipzig finally putting out the A team for the second half, and the situation was very different, right? First half was a 3-0 victory for Bayern, and then the second half was a 3-2 victory for Leipzig, maybe 3-1. I mean, the Sané goal happens at a time when Leipzig were really pushing for that equalizer. I put it as the equivalent of a hockey goal, you know, when the team pulls the goalkeeper and concedes late. It really felt like a 1-goal game, not a 2-goal game. I think goals are not going to be an issue for Bayern Munich for the most part. I think they're going to be distributed very differently. And I think also that will make it more difficult for them, for other teams to defend against them. And this is primarily in the Champions League, right? This team is built for Champions League success. I think everything else is just a given or bonus. Their demand there is right now that, you know, they have to win the Champions League. Whether they're going to be able to replace 50 goals, you know, I spent a week with Bayern Munich traveling through the United States, and also gave us a lot of access, not only to the players, but also people behind the scene, and really gave you a really good understanding of what's going on at the club and the perceptions of the club and the things that they're planning. But also, and I think this became almost like a running gag, because all the journalists that were on this tour, whenever we had someone in front of our microphones, we asked them, like, how are you going to replace 50 goals? And I think it was Thomas Müller who came to the press, and he just arrived and he's like, oh yeah, you guys are going to ask me about how we're going to replace 50 goals.
I always count on him.
We haven't even asked the question yet, and he was already providing us the answers. So he like interviewed himself, and he's a very funny guy. I think they're very much aware of it, and I think they do understand that it is difficult, but I think they also don't seem to worry very much about it because of the signings that they have made.
Like you said, the distribution of the goals will be different, but it doesn't seem like goals will be hard to come by. Now, let's look at the other end of the pitch, because De Ligt arrives after I'd say a net positive stint at Juve overall, with some mixed moments in there as well.
Yeah.
There's been a lot made about him being sort of that, or at least by the media, being that vocal leader at the back. Do you think that that's going to pan out in that way? Or do you think that someone like Hernandez or maybe Upamecano in year 2 will end up being that leader?
No, I think them signing De Ligt is very much a signal that Upamecano and Lucas Hernandez haven't worked out quite the way that they thought. And De Ligt, I think he's arriving to help Hernandez. I think Upamecano might have some problems now. Benjamin Pavard is another one, right, who is not really that happy about arriving, but there is some indication that Mazraoui might have some problems adapting to the Bundesliga, which is why selling Pavard is not going to happen, because they might need a right back on the highest level. Mazraoui, it's hard to tell, but there's some doubts that have crept in.
Just quickly with Mazraoui, because I can't get this out of my head. Is it mostly, to your understanding at least, is it mostly the technical side of things or the physical side of things that he's not really up to par with?
I think they're worried about his or the observers have been worried about his technical ability. I mean, we have to wait and see. He might surprise us positively and turn out very differently. But people are worried that his technical and tactical understanding is not good enough to become a 1A player for a Champions League winning team. I think the worry is that he's too one-dimensional to play every single one of Nagelsmann's games, because if he goes into a back three, he's not a winger, he's not a center back, he's just a right back. Doesn't have the multi-dimensionality to his game to necessarily be a 1A solution. That said, you still need a player like that in your system.
Yeah, absolutely. That's. I mean, I believe everything you said. I absolutely believe, and it does make sense. I was just not expecting to hear that about Mazraoui of all players.
I didn't either. This is something that I heard at the Super Cup, and I trust the people I speak to.
Okay.
So this is not my opinion generally. This is something that, when I asked people about the signing and what they thought, this is sort of what was given back to me as answers.
Gotcha.
And this is the important thing here to maybe mention as well. This is opinions from people who evaluate players and have a very good understanding of what's going on.
Well, I guess that's something I'll definitely be keeping my eye on. And speaking of the Super Cup, why don't we talk about RB Leipzig right away here? because I think that Domenico Tedesco's signing was a bit of a surprise last season, both in his appointment and how well they were playing under him.
Yeah.
They won the Pokal. They put a few past Bayern in preseason. They also held on to integral players like Nkunku, a guy who you want to build a team around. So Manuel, what are they missing, if anything? Because that second half, as you said, was great, to truly challenge for the title.
Maybe a little bit more experience. They're keeping Konrad Laimer, which is, I think, good news for the Bundesliga in general. I think the situation there has been that Leipzig do not want to sell and they don't need the money because they sold so much of the other deadwood, right? Players that they didn't need anymore, and they made money. And I read today that Ademola Lookman, he's going to Atalanta and they're getting 15 million euros for him.
Perfect.
So, it's incredible. I think they have made something like 70 million euros on players that they didn't need.
Yeah.
And that will bring them up to 85, which is a really good window. So they have money to spend. And if they keep Konrad Laimer, they can probably look for another central midfielder that they can sort of develop. What do they need? Yeah, I guess it's really hard to say. David Raum arrives, can play him further up the field too, right? And even if you needed to in a centre-back role. And then there's all this talk about Timo Werner. When I asked people at Leipzig about this, they were saying that they're very optimistic about it, that this deal is going to happen. The caveat is, of course, where do you put him? Because Andre Silva will be your number 9, and then Nkunku will sort of play off him. And where do you put Werner? Because the heat map of Werner and Nkunku is very similar. One of those two will have to reinvent themselves. And my guess is actually that the player that will be reinvented will be Nkunku, that you give him a more central role to allow his obvious goal-scoring abilities to shine through a little bit better, and then also take the pressure off Timo Werner in having to score a lot of goals, because I always joke Timo Werner's career was destroyed by VAR, right? There's a direct correlation of VAR coming in and his goal-scoring literally dropping by 10 goals. But they're very optimistic they can get him. And I think it comes down to, while this deal is being discussed and everyone, Werner wants his move, Leipzig wants his move. Chelsea, I think, want to have him off the books, but Tuchel doesn't. So I guess it will be a little bit of power struggle at Chelsea. I think this is a deal that's probably going to happen. And then the question is, how do you integrate him? And is he the guy that will give you those extra few points to dethrone Bayern? That's the question that I have. I'm not sure. I think the second half of the Super Cup gave you some indications that they can dance with them. But then you also had that first half, and while it's a glorified friendly, I firmly am of the belief that Bayern Munich are probably going to win the title again.
RB Leipzig, they're a title contender, or at least a challenger to Bayern, let's say, at this point. And then there's Borussia Dortmund as well. And they've had an interesting window because, of course, they lost Haaland, replaced him with Haller, proven goal scorer, but Sally will be out for some time. Yeah. And then you get to defense. I mean, we'll get to defense later, actually. Let's talk about, in the midfield, they replaced Witsel with Ozcan.
Good signing.
Very good signing. And then when you look at the back, which I think is where a lot of people will be really excited by what Dortmund have done. They bring in Schlotterbeck and Süle. Coupled with their other signings, do you think that it's going to be Borussia Dortmund as the top challenger to Bayern, or do you think that they're more at a level with RB Leipzig now?
So I was actually really happy with Dortmund signings, but then the Haller thing throws off massive question marks. This is the sort of thing that can really get a team going, or it can also be the sort of thing that really makes a team go deflate. I watched their first round cup game. Of course I watched it and my team was playing. It just wasn't Borussia Dortmund. I thought that they actually looked quite good in the first 45 minutes. Adeyemi, Moukoko, and Daniel Marlin switching positions, and against a lower division team like 1860, a third division team. It actually looked quite a lot of fun to watch. I guess then the question is, how does that translate to actual Bundesliga football, right? Yeah. And the second 45 minutes weren't very good. I did think that Dortmund were just nice to 1860 fans. And so I could see them just going with that 3-man attack.
And do you think that they've done enough? I mean, you said that you like their window, so I sort of already know your answer, but you think that they've done enough defensively, which has sort of been the thing that has hamstrung them in the past?
Yes, Süle is out injured start the season. Again, not ideal. To answer your earlier question, right, about I was high on their signings, but then Haller goes out and Süle goes out with injuries, and now all of a sudden the worry is that this great transfer window doesn't actually translate into great results. But defensively, I mean, Nico Schlotterbeck is a fantastic signing. Getting Niklas Süle on a free transfer as well, sort of having to make Bayern Munich go out and spend 67 million euros on Matthias de Ligt. That's a nice way of forcing the hand of your opponent. And I think their defensive issues have been fixed. And you have to remember too, in Özcan too, they bring in the guy who's going to help them tremendously as well in their defensive issues. I think if everyone is fit, they have a good run at Bayern Munich this year. I did rank them 4th in my Bundesliga prediction because I'm so worried about what's going on in terms of their fitness levels and with Haller. And I do also think that despite all the good signings, it could turn out to be another transition year for them. So I have them anywhere between comfortably finishing in the Champions League spots, but perhaps even challenging for the title.
Yeah, it could go in any direction.
Yeah.
So you mentioned them in 4th in your predictions. I would assume that this next team that I'm going to mention, Leverkusen, would be one of those teams finishing ahead of them.
3rd.
They had a very disappointing start to their season and losing to, what was it, a 3rd division side in the
German Cup, yeah.
So they're out of that competition. Yeah, that's a big oops. That said, when you look at their transfer window, it's another one where they were able to keep a lot of very important players. And they had a very solid term last season. Finally, we saw a truly prolific, I should say, Patrick Schick. So your expectation for them is just as good as last season, basically?
Better. Because they're bringing in Losek and they're still working on Mudryk, which is a difficult transfer because situation in Ukraine and situation with Shakhtar Donetsk makes it very difficult. But this is a team that was very good last year that hasn't gotten worse and actually added. I am high on them despite the German Cup. Sometimes going out in the first round of the German Cup is actually a good thing. Gives you a friendly reminder that this is going to be hard. And the German Cup is also, I personally think this is a good feature of this tournament. It's a great thing about it is that the Bundesliga teams have to play their first round the week before the season starts. But the 3rd and 2nd division teams, they're actually already 1 or 2 games into their regular season. So it's almost like a handicap, which means that every year at least 1 or 2 teams in the 1st division get kicked out by one of the teams in the lower division. So I'm not actually quite sure that what we can take away from it. But I mean, Leverkusen are facing Dortmund to start the season. And that's probably also right away your game to watch.
Yeah, you get an immediate litmus test at where these 2 teams are at. Yeah. I mean, with Dortmund, of course, there's a bit of an asterisk next to it. Let's not focus on any particular team right now, but there's been a lot of happening in this offseason. We had Niko Kovac coming back with Wolfsburg. You have Glasner in his 2nd season at Eintracht Frankfurt, Schalke returning, Werder Bremen returning, Union making a ton of moves, Mainz to consider. I mean, Manuel, what other storylines do you think, or teams, I should say, people should really be paying attention to outside of the main title contenders?
Yeah, I think that Wolfsburg is a really interesting one. We have them sort of as our team that will be back in Europe next year or qualify for Europe. I have them 5th. I think that Niko Kovac is exactly the coach they were looking for ever since Glasner left. They have done some really good business at this window as well. And I think I have them really highly. And by them not playing in Europe, that will also give them something extra when the World Cup comes around, right? And they have essentially a month off where other teams are very heavily involved with the Champions League and then also have a lot of players at the World Cup. So there's a team that I rank quite highly and I think is going to be a story to watch. I think that Frankfurt is always interesting to watch. Fully have them as a mid-table finish, but yet still winning something because this is how they operate. Mario Götze coming back, I think, is good for German football. And he looked good in his first outing for Frankfurt. They beat Magdeburg in the first round of the German Cup. They made it look easy. It was a 4-0 victory, and Götze was the man of the match. He's looking good. He's actually looking slim. He's looking healthy. He's looking very fit. I think he almost reversed age during his 2 years in the Netherlands.
Oh, good.
And which is what we want to see, right? I think this is going to be one of the greatest storylines there. Like, what if he guides Frankfurt to another title. Does really well in the Champions League. This is a guy who's still only 30, and I think we all want his story to end with a happy end, right?
Absolutely.
And I think this is maybe his opportunity to do exactly that.
Yeah, it will be heartwarming, to say the least, to have him back and performing at a decent level once again back in Germany. Now, with Lewandowski and Haaland leaving, this is another sort of aside, just a little quick thing. Who will rise as the top scorer? Is it going to be Sheik? Is it going to be maybe Nkunku? Who do you think?
Could be Nkunku. I have Serge Gnabry down at over 20 goals this year.
Okay. Yeah, that whole attacking sort of fluid front line of Bayern, you could see any of those players sort of starting to pop off with, just because the big question mark is how exactly they will attack. And like you said, the distribution of goals, it will be interesting to see which way they sort of weigh towards more, which player they weigh towards more of those goals. Sadio Mane, that's another one that could potentially start scoring for fun. It's difficult to say. It's kind of fun now to see, to move past the Lewandowski era, the dominance era, and see who will rise.
I don't think we're going to have a guy who's going to score. Oh, Schick could do it. He could score 30 goals, I guess, if he's on his clip from last year. I'm not sure we're going to have a 30-goal scorer, though, but we're probably going to have a bunch in the 20s.
And so, Manuel, the last thing that I want to ask you about basically is what teams do you think are in trouble?
Bochum, Schalke, Werder, Hertha, Augsburg. I think those teams are all in trouble. Schalke and Werder, the two promoted sides, they're giants, but they went down at a time, at possibly the worst possible time, right? Because in the past, when a big team like them went down, you would just rebound and you would use your superior resources to, recover a year in the second division, come back up and be okay. But now, because of COVID, they were already hurting when they went down, and then they had to strip the squads to bare bones. There's not a huge difference between them and any other team that's come up from the second division. They're full on second division sides, right? And they themselves admit that there's probably going to be another year or two of pain. It's like for them, it's just about staying in. Then, of course, the machinery starts going again. You have the big stadium, you have the huge amount of fans that support your team, the merchandise and all that sort of stuff will kick in, and you will get more TV money, and then you will probably be able to recover quicker than, let's say, a Greuther Fürth if they come up, or like even Freiburg or Mainz, who then are just happy to stay in if they go down, right? But I think their first year is going to be tremendously difficult, and I actually have one of the two go down, because it's really hard. People have to remember the Bundesliga is only 18 teams. There isn't a lot of spots, and this year there isn't really a lot of spots because there's so many big sides now back in this competition. And I think that one of the two will probably go back down or have to play the promotion relegation playoff.
So guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video, this preview to get you primed and ready for this upcoming weekend of fixtures in the Bundesliga and for the season in general. I hope if you enjoyed it, do be sure to check out Manuel on Twitter. He's a great follow. He works for Transfermarkt. If you want a reliable transfers guy, then Manuel is your man. He also covers some MLS as well, some Canadian Premier League, etc., etc., etc. He has his own podcast, Gegenpressing, the Bundesliga podcast. Do be sure you check that out. It's a great podcast that's continuing to grow at an exponential rate. And then we also have Unsackable podcast, of which myself and Manuel are both a part of. So check those links out in the description. But beyond that, thank you guys for watching. I very much appreciate it. My name is Adrian, and we will see you in the next one. Ciao.